Hi everybody, welcome to Ramsey's Rockin' Roads. And this is an episode that I've really been excited about. I'm here with my sidekick, Funny Boy Shane, and we're at Waller Park, Santa Maria, California. Beautiful day. Looks like it's clearing up nicely. And this is an episode that Shane and I have been talking about for a long time and that I'm super excited about. I don't know what the name of it's gonna be, but the synopsis is we're gonna talk about building your career, building your business. Now, everybody talks about goals and goals and goals and goals. And every self-help guru talks about goals, goals, goals. And they've actually gotten to the point where there's semi-science to goal setting. This is what you do, step one. This is what you do, step two. This is what you do, step three. By the time you get to step four, you've lost steam and you're all, oh hell, I'm not gonna even go through with it. Anyway, I want to talk about, I just want to simplify. As now we're 10, 11, 12 episodes into this thing. Everything on Ramsey's Rockin' Roads is all about going back to the basics, simplifying, simplify, simplify. And I had a competitor, I'm going to start off with a story. I had a competitor of mine call me up. Well, he's been calling me for the last couple of years, wanting to take me to lunch. And every time he calls, I said, hey, you tell me when you want to go to lunch, and I'm there. I'm always up for lunch. A couple beers, lunch, I'm all in. Finally, something happened in this guy's life to where he really, really needed to talk to somebody. And I said, hey, bring your wife. She's part of the business. Let's meet, let's talk. So we went to lunch, we sat down, and I asked them both, I said, where do you want to see your company go? Both of them immediately talked at the same exact time. And I actually laughed and I said, wait. I said, the funny thing was, the reason I laughed is because she wanted one thing, he wanted something else. These guys are partners in this thing. If one person wants one thing, the other person wants the other thing, there's gonna be a conflict there. There's gonna be a clash. And I said, wait a second, guys. I said, let's take a step back. You want to sell this thing because it's too stressful. You just want to get your bills paid because it's too stressful. Let's go back to the basics. It always goes back to the basics. And then we chatted for lunch. We talked about certain things. And at the end of the day, my advice to them was back to basics, as it always is. Anytime there's a problem, and I'll use Waller Park here as an example. Anytime I'm having a problem in my life, my personal life, my family life, my friendship life, doesn't really matter. I sometimes come out here to Waller Park and I just simply pick up garbage. That's all I do. It's my little way of meditating. They have Frisbee golf out here. I've done that before. Come out here by myself, Frisbee golf, pick up garbage, go back to the basics. And believe it or not, 999 times out of 1,000, the answer comes to me within a day. Most of the time it's within minutes, maybe an hour, no longer than a day. Just my way of resetting myself, going back to the basics. And that's what I had recommended to this couple. And I said, my office is a jumping off board for you guys. Copy us. I'm not worried. I mean, there's enough work for everybody. Do the proposals the way we do the proposals. Protect yourself with the customer. Give the customer an idea exactly what's going to take place on the job. And it was just literally just a matter of going back to the basics, going back to a written proposal. I mean, just a simple written proposal, just a simple billing cycle, just a simple, you want to change? Here, Mr. Customer, sign off on the change. And that's really at the end of the day what the jumping off point was for them. But before this lunch ended, the real question that I ask myself every day, and that I want you as viewers to ask yourself, comes from the late great Tom Watson of IBM. What is my business, or what is my career? You don't have to be a business owner. You could be in it for your career. What is my business? What does my career look like when I'm done? Now, in previous episodes, we talked about the levels of learning and being consciously incompetent, unconsciously incompetent, and what your career looks like or what your business looks like is very, very different. I'm 45 years old. What my business looks like to me right now is very different than what it looked like when I was 20 years old. And what your business may look like because you're 60 years old when it's done is different than what my business looks like when it's done. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I've got at least 20 more years to do this. If you're 60 or 70 years old, you're kind of thinking, okay, I want to start slowing down and I want to start taking it easy. And what your business looks like when you're done, it's very realistic. And hopefully you're at a point where that end is positive. And you keep watching episodes like this and keep learning and growing. No matter what age you are, it will be positive no matter what. It has to be. That's what nature says. It has to be. There are certain rules there that it has to be. So we ask ourselves, what does my career look like when I'm done? What does my business look like when I'm done? And if you can really, truly ask yourself that question and internalize it, you wake up every day with that in mind. You wake up every day with the answer to your question. Now, let's rewind 30 years when I first started working for my grandfather, that all of you guys know. I started working for my grandfather when I was a young age. Well, what I wanted my career to look like at that point is I just wanted to become the greatest shoveler the world has ever seen. Okay? So I mastered that. I became unconsciously competent. I can shovel like nobody's business without even thinking about it. Then I went to work for Midco and I said, you know what? I'm going to have value to Midco if I can master being a raker. And that was what I did. That was where I was at my career at that point. And then it's just progressed after that. It's just progressed because I've always asked myself, now I have to say, what my business looks like when I'm done, I stole that from Tom Watson, and I got that from Michael Garber, from eMyth, but it resonated with me so much that I've kept it for myself, and it literally maps out every day for me. Because I'm gonna give you an example. Tommy Hopkins gives us the torpedo example. John Assaraf gives us the airplane. I'm gonna back up here, Shane, a little bit. So in life, if you wake up every day with the idea that this is what my business looks like when I'm done, you're like a torpedo. You go down, you veer off course a little bit. Now, what made you veer off course? Who knows? You got sick. Okay, you overcame that, now you're back on course. But you overcorrected a little bit, now you're back off course again. But you're still moving forward. Now, why did you veer off course that time? A bill came in, you owe taxes, you owe whatever, you had a machine breakdown, you had one of your foremans. So life will always, like an airplane, like a torpedo. When you leave LA, this is a great analogy that John Assaraf gives us. You leave LA heading for New York, that plane doesn't fly exactly right on course the whole time. The wind, rain, altitude, atmospheric pressure makes that plane go off course constantly. So Tommy Hopkins says that if you're a human and you've got a pulse, you're either in conflict, going into conflict, or coming out of conflict. You're always in a state of flux. You're like that torpedo that has to go on and on. But if you wake up every day and you tell yourself, what does my career look like when I'm done? It is always a way of keeping yourself on track. You don't have to think about goal setting so much. You don't have to think about the goal setting. Now, goal setting comes in once you really get down the art of what does my business look like or what does my career look like when I'm done. Once you get to that point and you really master the art, then you can actually start setting goals to where things are super attainable. Like, for example, one story I love hearing is Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale started studying self-help. Now, he was a struggling sales guy in the 40s and 50s. He was a struggling sales guy in the 40s and 50s. And Earl Nightingale tells us a story about how he heard about this self-help. He heard about self-improvement, something he had never been exposed to it before. So he was a super critic. And then Earl Nightingale passed away in the 70s. Is a legend, maybe 80s. Forgive me, I don't know exactly when he passed away, but even to this day, his Lead the Field series is as timeless today as it was 40 years ago. But Earl Nightingale tells a story about how when he was a youngster, he learned about this self-help and he thought it was hocus pocus. So he says, you know what? I'm gonna prove it wrong. Or in his instance, he proved it it's right. So what he did is he said, okay, if this is true, this is what I'm going to do. Within the first month, he doubled his income. He says, okay, that was a fluke. Anybody could do that. It was just pure luck. So he says to end up proving the theory was wrong, he ends up setting the goals, doing what he was told to do, and I'm sure it was probably by Napoleon Hill. He sets a goal, he doubles his income again. Easy as that. Well, now my story is a little bit different. As I said in episode 1 or 2 or 3, I was introduced to self-help by Scott Santella, my good friend Scott Santella. And what happened with me is I realized that every time, I'm not a big reader, even to this day, I'm not a big reader. But every time I read or I listened to an Audible, because I spent a lot of time in the truck, and back then I spent a lot of time in the truck because we had that Motel 6 contract that I mentioned before, where we're driving all over the state of California. So I had hours and hours and hours of driving between Motel 6s before we restripe. And so I noticed that every time I listened to the same cassette, my life was changing for the better. So I listened and I listened, and I've gotten to such a habit that even to this day, I still can't go anywhere without something good to listen to. It's just become ingrained in me. It's just become a habit because I see the benefit in my own life. I see the benefit in people's lives. Because guys, you have to remember, guys and girls, you have to remember, as the leader of your organization, as the leader of your family, your business, your life, your career is only growing how the leader's going to grow. And it aggravates me every time, and I don't mean to speak out of line here, but it aggravates me when I hear a man or a woman say, when I talk about their career and they refer to, well, I need to talk to my spouse about that. Well, the spouse is at home dictating how the career is going, and it's inconsistent to me. It's super inconsistent to me. So anyway, getting back to business, getting back to your career, your business is only going to grow in direct proportion to you growing. And I hold myself to high standards. I'm learning and growing and listening. And I just can't get enough because there's so much to learn. It's a lifetime of learning. But I see just in my relations with my employees, I see in my relations with my family, with customers, it's more of the more I know, the more I learn, I create more of a connection with everybody. And really at the end of the day, going back to the first principle, primary question, what does my career look like when I'm done? What are we doing in order to affect people's lives? How are we being of service? And that's really, how can I be of service to as many people as I can? Zig Ziglar had his famous quote is, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. Now that was a riddle that I heard over and over and over because that was the very first cassette that I ever bought. And he says it 30 times in that 45-minute rally that he was at the success rally that he was at. He says it practically 30 times in that one cassette, but it was like a riddle to me that I couldn't understand. And I felt that, okay, I got to figure out how I can help enough people in order to get what I want. So I had my company, and this is in the early stages of my business. And I looked at this as a job, but then I was, okay, how can I help other people? Not realizing I was sitting on a pile of gold. I dabbled in real estate. I dabbled in house flipping. I dabbled in several different things. But all the while I was still doing asphalt because I needed a paycheck, but not realizing that all I have to do is ask myself that question: what does my business look like when I'm done? Put all your, as Andrew Carnegie says, put all your eggs in one basket and just watch that basket and make sure nobody kicks it over. Simple as that. Another funny thing that I run into with all the people I talk to, the people that call me for advice, the people reaching out on these podcasts, maybe it's just human nature. I really don't understand, but without exception, when somebody has come to me and says, Scott, you got to read this book. You got to take these vitamins. Obviously I don't just put something in my body without doing some research on it, vitamins or whatever. But I'm always open to, if somebody comes to me and says, Scott, you got to watch this podcast, you got to read this book, you have to take these vitamins because it absolutely will change your life. I'm the first person on board to say, I need it, give it to me, I need it now. So a lot of times I give people that same advice as I did the couple I went to lunch with. I give them the same advice and I say, guys, this is what my suggestion is. This is how I think it could best help you. And people, you give them the tools, and for some reason, maybe it's just because we're all skeptics. No, Scott, you don't understand. That won't work for my business. And I remember giving a suggestion to this competitor of mine about labor. And he says, I just can't find good labor. Well, he's a competitor of mine, and he says, they're not out there. And I looked at this gentleman and I said, I'm not going to use names, but I said, buddy, we're in the same business. How can I have good employees and I can find employees like that? We're at the same pay rate. Actually, he's a very small company, so working for him, the guys might actually make a little bit more money. But we're at the same pay rate, same type of business, doing the asphalt. There's no reason why he can't have the same guys I have. But he's not realizing that when he says there are no good guys out there, he's just manifesting that. He's creating that in his mind. There are no good guys out there. Now, going back to what I said, that we are the leaders of our family, we are the leaders of our career, we are the leaders of maybe our business. If you see a business out there that is struggling or not prospering or is flatlined, you got to kind of look at the top. Or if you see a family that's just flatlined, both mom and dad went to college, they worked and worked and worked, and then they got to a plateau, and then that's it. Then they stop, then they get divorced, then the kids hate, then it's just a bad deal. So you can see it, and when you guys watch this, you're gonna say, okay, that's me. Or that's my brother-in-law, or that, I can really truly see that, because that's just, it's nature. There are certain rules that we have to follow when it comes to gravity. There are certain rules we have to follow when it comes to physics. We cannot defy gravity. If I wanted to fly away like a bird, there is no way that's happening. There's rules of gravity here that I cannot. And there are rules of success. Napoleon Hill talked about it over 100 years ago. There's been thousands and thousands of books that have been written on it over the last 100 years. So anyway, back to the leader. The leader is what's going to dictate the growth. The leader is going to dictate where everything is. Now, the one thing I've always found with my business where I've achieved some level of success, I guess we could say, is I try to carbon copy myself with everybody that I hire. So that means I can't sleep until noon and then expect everybody else to be out there doing my work. I'm the first one at the office, I'm the last one to leave, and that's just the way it is. But the thing is with that is that breeds more of that. And so I'm only as good as the people I surround myself. And my people that I surround myself with, or the people underneath me, are only going to be as good as I am, and I'm only as good as they are. So we all help each other. And so that's just something to think about. If your business is struggling, if your career is struggling, the first place to start is you got to look in the mirror. It's not the company. It's not the customers. It's not the employees. You got to really, and I know it's a gut check, and I know it kind of hurts, but you have to look in the mirror, and you really have to make decisions and make changes based upon where you want to go. What is your career? What does your business look like when it's done? I got a quick funny story for you. This goes back a couple years. So I have, and I think I mentioned this in prior episodes, I have a sister and brother. I have one biological sister and one biological brother, meaning we have the same mom and the same dad. And I remember it was probably seven or eight Christmases ago. We were all gathered at my mom's house. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Forgive me. It goes further back than that. My mom is still alive, so this goes back nearly 13 years. We're all around a table around Christmas time, and I start talking to my sister and brother about getting their life on track. We were all in our early 30s at this time, so no excuses. It's not like we were 17 years old. We were all in our early 30s at the time. And I talked to my sister and my brother, and my sister says, Scott, it's easy for you to say, you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. And I just about backhanded my sister, and I told her, I said, Tiffany, we come from the same mom and dad. We were raised by the same people. How can you even say that? So just a funny story about how when you get certain levels of success, when you get to a certain point in life, people say it's luck. People say you got the breaks. People say whatever they say. There's no such thing, guys, I don't care. There's no such thing as luck. Hate to break the news to you. There's no such thing as luck. Earl Nightingale says luck is what happens when preparedness meets opportunity. And I believe that's true. We just talked about that in a couple episodes before this, about looking for opportunity, looking for growth, and giving. And so I think that's all I have for now. Peace out, guys. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Ramsey's Rockin' Roads, and we'll see you next time.